Recent research has shown a startling increase in Americans' unfavorable attitudes towards Muslims. Whereas in 2006, roughly 21% said they viewed Muslims unfavorably, this number has been on the rise, reaching as high as 63% in some surveys. These results raise important questions as to the causes of this steady shift, the forces behind it, and how to best reverse it in the future. Dr. Atem Bazian at the University of California, Berkeley, refers to the underlying sentiments as latent and manifest Islamophobia, a fear founded on films, news reports, media talking heads, and books that problematize Muslim subjects and emphasize Islam as violent, backward, and oppressive. Muslim subjects are often constructed and judged in terms of and in comparison to the West, so that they are always the other, the conquerable, and the inferior. The public atmosphere is so intensely poisoned with Islamophobia and racism directed at Muslims and minorities that it has reached a crucial tipping point toward violence. It is no longer a question of whether mass violence will be committed against Muslims and minorities, but a matter of when, for all indications point to heightened levels of threat. The airways are dominated by civil society's bullies who are using a venomous, toxic mix of Islamophobia, racism, and anti-immigrant xenophobic rhetoric in the hope of capturing seats of power. In 2011, a groundbreaking report for the first time exposed the funding sources behind groups that use sophisticated strategies to essentialize Muslims and give them voice only in relations to terrorism and violence. The report shows how the Islamophobic industry is committed to the systematic demonization of Islam while collapsing a diverse 1.4 billion people into a single, undifferentiated, threatening class. Wedge issues, such as the National Anti-Sharia Campaign, are critical pieces in the strategist's tool chest. Another tactic frames issues as a matter of national security and a threat to the homeland, which puts liberal Democrats on the defensive. The current debates on immigration, Syrian refugees, Iran's nuclear deal, and economic uncertainties are all crafted as wedge issues by right-wing politicians. The result is that the Islamophobic activists have been able to infect civil society's consciousness and public discourses with an otherization message that views American Muslims as a threat to American society. Rather than speak of a changing America and the challenges posed by it, the Islamophobic network employ the well-tested and often successful otherization campaign to keep the status quo in place. We have seen this type of bullying in the past. It has been directed at blacks, Jews, Mexicans, Chinese, Japanese, Irish, Italians, Catholics, and Vietnamese. Muslims are simply the latest target for opportunistic and conniving politicians. Civil society's bullies are roaming and dominating every aspect of public life and have captured the consciousness of a people worn down by economic collapse, outsourcing, failed fictitious wars abroad, and broken promises of a better life ahead. Bullies stoke people's fear and direct animus at their preferred powerless targets, so as to maximize the political, economic, and social returns for them and the small circle of funders. Civil society's bullies function the same way as schoolyard ones, and constantly scheme to steal and ravage society like vultures feeding on a rotten corpse. Extremists have managed to set the terms of the debate. Fear, anxiety, and mistrust are what the violent extremists seek, and the more reactionary the society becomes, the more the extremists are in the driver's seat. Indeed, fearful people will accept the unthinkable and suspend rational judgment at the moment rationality is most urgently needed. The global conversation has been completely taken over by violent extremists on both ends of the spectrum, and the constructed narratives fit perfectly for each to rationalize extreme action. The regular person begins to internalize the us versus them understanding. Thus, the collective public mind becomes polluted, the atmosphere becomes infused with otherization, and violent extremism is embedded as the acceptable and rational choice to protect us from the constructed them. Violence and securitization becomes the only response. Extremists succeed in shrinking democracy for all. So, how can we break this cycle? What works in the face of civil society's bullies are well-organized, politically assertive, and empowered communities who are serious in defending equality, religious freedom, and dignity for all, and proactive in protecting democracy, constitutional, civil, and human rights. As America faces an emboldened crop of bullies, the immediate response should be to develop a broad civil and human rights coalition with all the affected communities that will work diligently and boldly to deter and counter the rising tide of racism and fascism. A comprehensive solution can be achieved with coordinated action from civil society leaders, policymakers, and a cultural environment where media are held responsible for magnifying violent extremist rhetoric. Defeating violent extremism can be done with a greater commitment to democracy, free speech, religious inclusiveness, dignity for all, and a readiness to build a great society founded upon ethics. To learn more, visit www.irdproject.com.